There are moments in life when a person hits rock bottom, moments when everything feels lost, moments when the world seems to close every door. Some people stay there, others rise. This is the story of a man who rose, a man who changed his destiny from inside a prison cell, a man who transformed his mind, his heart, and his mission. This is the story of Malcolm X, and this is also the story of how you can transform your life too. Before the world knew Malcolm X, they knew Detroit Red, a hustler, a gambler, a street survivor. He wasn't born that way. Life pushed him there. His father was killed. His family broke apart. His dreams were crushed when a teacher told him he could never become a lawyer. When society closes doors, the streets open theirs, and Malcolm walked right in. But that life always ends the same way. Police, handcuffs, prison. For most people, that is the end. For Malcolm, it was the beginning. Malcolm entered prison full of anger and frustration. But something unexpected happened. Letters from his brothers and sisters began arriving, especially from his brother Reginald. Those letters pushed him to reflect, to think, to question his path. At first, he resisted. He laughed at the idea of change. He rejected the idea of faith. But when the prison went quiet at night, those words stayed in his mind. That is how transformation begins, with one powerful question. What am I really doing with my life? In prison, Malcolm discovered something powerful. Knowledge. He went to the prison library. He read every book he could find. History, philosophy, religion, politics. He copied the entire dictionary by hand, just to expand his vocabulary. He didn't have YouTube. He didn't have Google. He didn't have mentors. But he had hunger. A hunger to learn, a hunger to think, a hunger to break free, mentally and spiritually. He said that reading in prison gave him something he had never felt before. Freedom inside the mind. Lesson 1. Feed your mind and the world cannot imprison you. Malcolm X's journey of transformation is one of the most powerful examples of how education, self-discipline, and purpose can completely reshape a human being from the inside out. His story shows that the mind can be rebuilt, the spirit can be renewed, and the entire direction of a life can be redirected through intentional effort. Education was the spark that awakened Malcolm's curiosity, but it was discipline that sculpted his character into something stronger, sharper, and unbreakable. When he entered prison, he was caught in a cycle of self-destruction. Drugs, gambling, negative habits, wasted hours, and wasted potential. But once he made the decision to change, he cut those things out of his life with absolute seriousness. He stopped poisoning his body. He stopped gambling away his time and energy. He stopped entertaining influences that pulled him backward instead of forward. He stopped letting his days disappear without purpose. Inside that small prison cell, Malcolm transformed his routine. He began to wake up early, even when nobody required it of him. He studied late into the night, often until his eyes strained from exhaustion. He read everything he could get his hands on: history, religion, philosophy, language, politics, and culture, building a mind far sharper than the one he entered with. He wrote letters to develop his thinking, to sharpen his arguments, and to discipline his communication. He reflected on his past, analyzed his beliefs, and constantly evaluated the man he wanted to become. He trained his emotions so he could remain calm under pressure. He trained his focus so he could direct his energy toward growth, not destruction. He trained his discipline so he could overcome impulses and desires that once controlled him. Through all of this, Malcolm proved that transformation isn't a sudden miracle or a random blessing. Real transformation is the result of daily work, consistent effort, repeated choices, and a commitment to becoming better. And the truth he discovered is universal. If you do not take control of your habits will eventually take control of your entire life. Malcolm didn't wait for perfect circumstances to improve. He didn't wait for inspiration, motivation, or opportunity. He rebuilt himself in the least ideal conditions imaginable, inside a prison cell. That raises a difficult but necessary question for every person today. What excuse are you holding on to that is stopping your own transformation? But Malcolm's evolution was not just intellectual, it was deeply spiritual. His transformation reached the core of who he was as a human being. He learned humility after years of living with pride, ego, and defensiveness. He learned self-respect, recognizing that true value comes from discipline and integrity, not from validation or applause. He learned purpose, a sense of mission larger than himself. He came to understand that real strength never comes from dominating or intimidating others. Real strength comes from mastering your own ego, your impulses, your anger, and your weaknesses. His spiritual growth gave him direction when life had once seemed chaotic. It gave him clarity when confusion had ruled his choices, and it gave him peace in an environment where peace is almost impossible to find. The moment Malcolm discovered his purpose, he became unstoppable. He walked into prison as Detroit Red, a man known for hustling, surviving, and running from discipline. But he walked out as Malcolm X, a man driven by mission, fueled by conviction, and ready to change the world. That mission did not just change his life, it changed millions of lives and shaped history. But Malcolm's story is not only about his transformation. It is a mirror held up to anyone who struggles today. Not everyone is locked in a physical prison, but many people live inside invisible prisons every day. Prisons made of fear, addiction, self-doubt, laziness, or toxic surroundings. These prisons are just as real, just as limiting, and sometimes even harder to escape because they live inside the mind. If Malcolm could rebuild himself from behind steel bars with limited resources, limited freedom, and limited support, then you can rebuild your life from wherever you are standing right now. Transformation begins with simple but powerful steps. First, educate yourself daily. Read, learn, question, explore, and stretch your thinking. A stronger mind leads to a stronger life. Second, build discipline. Wake up early, exercise your body, control your habits, protect your environment, and train yourself like someone who is preparing for a better future. Third, find purpose. A reason to wake up, a mission to work toward, something greater than comfort or convenience. Fourth, be willing to leave your old identity behind. Malcolm had to let go of Detroit Red, the old version of himself. And you must be willing to let go of the version of yourself that keeps you stuck. Finally, commit to improving every single day. Even one small step forward, repeated consistently, can change the trajectory of an entire lifetime. Malcolm X entered prison as a man the world had already counted out. He walked out as a leader, a thinker, a reformer, and a symbol of what is possible when a human being chooses transformation. His story stands as a reminder that where you begin does not define where you can go. Your past does not dictate your future. Your surroundings do not limit your potential. Only your choices, repeated day after day, determine who you ultimately become. And the decision to transform your life does not begin tomorrow, next week, or someday in the future. It begins right now, today.